These are, I mean, the results unlike you see anywhere else with any other doctor.
She is definitely an answer to my prayers for sure. I felt like I was actually dying at times. I've been to liver specialists, GI doctors. No one could give me any answers. I'm so truly blessed to have found this program.
Hey everyone, today we're going to hear from alumni Amy, who was dealing with very painful and debilitating symptoms associated with her diagnoses of IBS, lichen sclerosus, and neuropathy. These were symptoms that were impacting her daily life so much so that she actually said she felt like she was dying. And because of this program, she says she was able to get her life back.
I can't wait for you guys to see Amy's results. And I think really interesting to her story is she works in the medical field. She's gone through 20 years of different doctors, tons of symptoms, and she spent over $50,000 with various doctors trying to end her struggle with autoimmunity. So I'd love for you guys to see her results. I can't wait. Let's dig in. I'm Maggie Yu, MD. I'm a functional and holistic medicine physician and the creator of the Transform Protocol and the Facebook group Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, make sure you click the link above or below this video to join our Facebook group, where we have tons of trainings and case studies. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a subscribe, and ring the bell so you get notifications. Hey, Amy, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, my name is Amy, and I just retired last month after working 26 years and 9 months at a hospital. I have 2 children. My oldest daughter will be 23 next month, and she just graduated with a dental hygiene degree. And my son is 19, and he just graduated from high school.
Amy, what a great celebration for you to have just retired, but unfortunately you were dealing with some health issues. So talk about some of the symptoms that you were struggling with.
Yes, my biggest symptom is insomnia. My other symptom was neuropathy, and it made it difficult for me to walk into work because we parked in a parking deck that is a mile away from our office. And so often on days I would have extreme trouble walking into work.
So question, Amy, what was the actual autoimmune diagnoses you were struggling with?
IBS and lichen sclerosus.
Okay. And with the lichen sclerosus, were there some specific symptoms that were really bothering you?
They haven't really bothered me in a while, but when they were inflamed or flared, I had extreme vaginal burning and pain, and my skin was very thin and it would bleed oftentimes.
No fun. And how many?
No.
Yeah. And so you had lichen sclerosus, you had neuropathy, you also had IBS, but you've mentioned also that you were struggling with a lot of fatigue and brain fog.
Yes. The fatigue would be so bad that I felt like I had absolutely no energy at all. And the brain fog would make it so I couldn't think clearly at work. And it made it hard because I worked in the medical field and you have to be very detailed in your work there so that you don't compromise patients' information and so forth.
What I'm hearing from you is that this was really starting to interrupt your life and interrupt your work. You know, you were a dedicated employee for so many decades, and now you were finding yourself in a situation where you almost didn't trust yourself that you were able to do your job correctly.
Yes, that's correct. It's actually very detrimental to me because I put everything into my work. I love helping people, and so that's why I worked in the medical field. And the patients' lives are important, and so that was my number one priority. And not being able to do that on a daily basis was very difficult.
I can only imagine. Can you share with us what kind of work you were doing in the medical field?
Well, when I first started there back in 2001, I was a medical transcriptionist, and I worked from home until 2018 when they decided to do away with all medical transcriptionists because they went to voice recognition. And so I had to go back down to the hospital to work. And when I first got back down there, I was at the front desk, but then they took me into the cytology lab, and I was trained to work with the non-GYN specimens and the GYN specimens, and they trained me how to basically, do those specimens so that they could be put on slides and read by pathologists.
You had to have a lot of mental clarity to be able to function in this role. And you were struggling because of your autoimmune issues.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, fun fact, I was a medical transcriber for like 7 years.
Oh, awesome.
I did. This is me on a typewriter with headphones
Yes.
for 7 years, high school and college. It put me through med school.
Love it. So you guys share that in common.
I know, right?
And Amy, you were talking about it was hard for you at one point to even walk around, walk to work, walk across the street.
It was so strange. When I would have these flares, like it was hard for me to breathe also at this time. And I think that has something to do with the fatigue part of it. But I actually had to concentrate on walking. Like, we take for granted walking every day because we don't have to think about how to do it. But it was making me have to think about how to do it because I felt like my legs were going to come out from under me, like that they weren't going to hold me.
And what was that like for you? I imagine quite scary and concerning.
It's scary, devastating. Yeah, I was embarrassed. I was really embarrassed. Yeah, I can't explain that feeling, but embarrassment.
You want to hear something interesting, Amy? Is because a lot of people in our audience may have an autoimmune diagnosis, like you have, lichen sclerosus. We know it's autoimmune, but a lot of people don't know IBS is related or likely autoimmune. And the other thing is, you had a lot of symptoms that weren't directly related to IBS or lichen sclerosus. For example, I mean, we talked about the neuropathy, which is autoimmune attack against your nerves, the chronic fatigue, right? The brain fog. None of those really have anything to do with lichen sclerosus or IBS. So tons of other symptoms that weren't directly attributed to an autoimmune disorder. Am I right?
Right. Yes.
How did you feel like the medical field dealt with that? Did you feel like the super special rare zebra, as I called it? Did that make you feel alone? Were they able to tie it together for you?
I felt very alone. I felt like they thought I was crazy. My PCP, I feel like she still thinks I'm crazy. They did not really help me with any of it. They tried putting me on Cymbalta. I was on Cymbalta for 11 years. And I was finally weaned off that last fall because I just felt like it wasn't doing me any good. So why was I taking it? Yeah, it's a very lonely feeling for sure.
And so you fortunately were able to find this program. I want to hear, how are you doing now? What have your results been? Because it sounds like it was a very challenging journey up until the point where you found this program.
Yes. So far, I've had a 90% decrease in my neuropathy. I've had.
Wait a minute. 90% decrease in neuropathy. So let's back up there because this is unheard of in conventional medicine. I just want to ask though, when you say 90% decrease, this is your hands, your feet, your legs. It affected numbness, tingling, shooting pain, and weakness, correct?
Correct.
Okay. 90% decrease.
Yes.
And you had never had that kind of decrease ever before since it started, I assume.
No, I have not.
Remind us, you've been out of the program for how long now?
I just got out. Last week was my last week.
This is over the last 2 months, Anne.
Yeah.
And how many years have you struggled with those symptoms for?
I've been having symptoms for 20 plus years.
20 plus years, Anne, and in 2 months, she's at 90% recovery from neuropathy.
These are, the results, unlike you see anywhere else with any other doctor. So I just want to hear from you, Amy, kind of what are your thoughts and feelings toward Dr. Maggie after struggling with this pain and now going through her program, having her hold your hand, and you're feeling 90% better?
Yes. She is definitely an answer to my prayers for sure, because I don't know where I would be without her. I mean, I felt like I was actually dying at times because my symptoms have gotten so much worse over the past 6 months. And, I've been to liver specialists, GI doctors. No one could give me any answers.
But you finally found someone who could.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so truly blessed to have found this program. Absolutely.
Question. That's neuropathy, and you have an outcome that's unheard of. I hope people in the audience who suffer neuropathy just know how out of the box this really is. And we'll go through the linchpins as to why, but I'm really curious about all the other symptoms because it isn't just about neuropathy. We talked about the chronic fatigue and we talked about the brain fog. Where are those things at right now?
The brain fog is pretty much gone. Yeah. Yeah. And the fatigue is so much better. so much better, at least probably 80 or 90% on that as well.
Well, tell me something that you can do now because you don't have the fatigue that before just seemed like you would be climbing a mountain.
I can pretty much do a bunch of things that I wasn't able to before, like clean my house. I was not able to
Cleaning the
clean my
house.
Yeah. And actually exercise, walk on the treadmill.
You got your life back from what I hear.
Yeah.
How is the IBS? How is your digestion?
My digestion is significantly improved. Yes, significantly.
What has improved about it?
So I believe it's the digestive enzymes that I was lacking, and also the absorption.
You know what's
It's
something
been so much
interesting?
better.
A lot of people with autoimmune disease think it's just all about elimination diet and removing food and nothing about digestion and absorption. What do you think is one thing you've learned about your own digestion or absorption that was a game changer for you?
The fact that I had low stomach acid to begin with.
Huge.
Has anyone ever
Huge.
told you that before? Did you ever understand that before?
No, and the thing that was really enlightening to me about it was the fact that my grandmother passed away from stomach cancer.
Yeah.
And that is a precursor to stomach cancer.
Having low stomach acid, chronic heartburn, reflux, taking medications like omeprazole, H2 blockers, these are precursors to actually having gut-related cancers, especially like stomach
Yes.
cancer. That's interesting that you already know that. I love that. So by
Yes.
addressing the root cause, you don't have to be a victim to your genetics from your family tree. You can be a
Right.
pattern interrupt for you and for the generation below you.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that.
Amy, when you think about that, do you think, hey, that could have been me going down that path? Have you had those thoughts? You know, my grandmother died from this stomach cancer. I was perhaps traveling along that same path. What kinds of thoughts have you encountered in your own mind about this?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I have thought about that a lot. Yes.
And now your life is taking a different path.
Yes.
You mentioned you have 2 children. I'm just so curious. You've done so much to improve yourself to now be there for them. Tell me how this program has impacted not just you, but your family.
I think that it's shedding light for them, seeing me change my diet since I am genetically gluten intolerant, and they know this. They're not really willing to change their diets at this point. I think it may have something to do with their age.
You know, here's the thing. I think with our children, it's really important that the 2 most important ways that we influence our children is either as a warning or an example, right? Telling our
Right.
kids what to do doesn't work. You and I know this, and the audience knows this. So for
Yeah.
me, Amy, the most important thing here is you became the example. You have results with 90% resolution right now, just in 2 months of your
Right.
GI symptoms, your digestive issues, your absorption, your fatigue, your brain fog, and your neuropathy. And
Yes.
the way I see that impacting our children is, interestingly, is when they're ready and when they need help, they'll look at you and they'll think about, I want some of that. And that's you serving as an example. Warning would
Right.
be, I don't ever want to have happen what happened to my mom happened to me. In a way, we all have been warnings, but this time you are now an example.
Okay.
And
Yes.
they get to choose when they want your help or need your help or want to take that example on as a gift from you.
Right. Absolutely.
I imagine your kids though are just so happy to have mom feeling like mom again.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there things that you can now do? I know you mentioned your son just graduated. Are there things you can do with them now that you just weren't able to do the last few years?
Yes, pretty much everything. I missed a lot of events over the years due to being sick all the time. So now I'm able to go to more events with them, just do more things with them overall.
I would love to go back to lichen sclerosus because a lot of people are tuning in because they see the title of this video and they know that you have lichen sclerosus. And there's a lot of symptoms that women don't talk about with lichen sclerosus.
Yes.
Lichen sclerosus, just so people know, it's an autoimmune disease associated with autoimmune attack against what we call the mucous membranes. So it can impact various places. It could be mouth, throat. Frequently, we're talking about vaginal area. And if you think about really thinning of that skin, open wounds and sores, itching and burning in that area, this is a life-altering diagnosis to have. I know you mentioned that when you were having symptoms that it was a lot of burning and a lot of itching. What has happened as a result of this program with those symptoms right now?
I basically don't have any of those symptoms at this point.
What does that feel like, Amy?
It feels awesome. Like I won the
Literally.
lottery. Yes.
She won the lottery. And
I
that's the
won the
thing.
lottery.
But Anne, I mean, just to clarify, regular doctors have no treatment for lichen sclerosus. All they have is steroid creams or anti-inflammatory creams, which both of which, like especially steroid creams, thins the area more and more and more. And to the point where that doesn't help. If that area of the skin gets more and more thin, that doesn't
Yeah.
help the situation. You might have helped with the itching temporarily while you're using it, but long-term
Right.
use of it thins out the skin even more.
It makes it worse.
What the hell?
And it seems like a diagnosis that not only takes a toll on you physically, but that seems like one that really can take a toll on you emotionally and mentally, because this is an area that you certainly don't want to have these issues with: extreme burning, extreme itching, pain. So when you have such a turnaround after conventional doctors told you that this is not possible, what has that done for your mentality?
It definitely gives me a boost of confidence now that I didn't have before, and my self-esteem as well.
I love that. So, I mean, when your private, let's say when your private Idaho gets better,
Yeah.
I mean, people don't realize how much that impacts upon our femininity, about our role as a mother, a woman, you know, and just feeling normal when that area itches and burns all the time. But can I
Yeah.
ask you, people want to know the secret sauce.
Mhm.
What do you think was the linchpin to the autoimmune disease with the lichen sclerosus having huge improvements? What do you think was one or two things that really was a game changer for you?
I think for sure, definitely the food mapping,
Really?
because yeah, I am highly sensitive to beef and garlic, and I did not know that. And so, garlic is basically in everything. And since I cut out both of those, I've noticed a huge improvement in inflammation, for one. Absolutely.
And Amy, who the hell, no matter what elimination diet you've been on, none of them ask you to remove garlic or beef, and they're healthy.
Yes.
And how quickly after removing just beef and broccoli, I'm not talking 90 foods, guys, not another elimination diet. This is based on her blood data, doing our food mapping process. How long did it take when you remove beef and garlic for you to actually experience a change?
It was about 2 weeks.
I'm curious, had you ever done any kind of food testing before?
I had, and some of it was on there.
But it
I'd
sounds like
already known about.
whatever you did
Yeah.
previously, though, wasn't completely accurate. It wasn't giving you these results.
No, not at all.
Well, I'm going to say something like this on the food mapping results that you did. And I want to clarify for anyone watching this, food mapping for us isn't just about food sensitivity testing. Okay. And that's full of errors out there. Many tests are very, let's say, have a lot of false positives or negatives. So maybe one or two things are right, but it can overcall or undercall a lot of stuff. That's why the data from a lot of other testing is unusable. The other thing is it's way more than just food testing. We're talking digestion, absorption, reintroduction. There's a huge part of our whole program about food mapping, which is only one component is the testing. But even on the testing, did beef and garlic appear before on your previous testing?
No.
And did you have to, okay. Right. So that's the key I want the audience to take away, which is that there, as far as I'm concerned, I know for a fact, many people come to us with previous testing of food sensitivity, and that data didn't bring them any closer to the truth. It could have cost them a lot of money or very little money with mail order. But the problem is that information just isn't accurate. Why spend money on those tests just not to find out the real culprit? So here, the first time you were taught what are false positives, what are false negatives, it was just beef and garlic. I really want to point this out to everybody. That's like really going to the answer, first step, not 10, 5, 20 years later, right? We're talking first step. And within 2 weeks, you had results.
Yes.
Because had you not removed those, had you not, worked on all of the other pillars and decreased your inflammation, like you mentioned, it sounds to me like you were already starting to accumulate more issues. I mean, you had IBS, you had lichen sclerosus, you were dealing with many, many symptoms, fatigue being awful, brain fog being awful. Did you just worry that you were going to continue to go down this terrible path where you just got more and more issues?
Yes, absolutely. Oftentimes when I would flare over the past 6 months, I felt like my organs were shutting down.
So this is interesting timing because Amy, do you mind sharing what age you're at?
I am 51. I just turned 51 on Friday.
So here's the thing I really want the audience to understand is that there was a reason the last couple of years was an autoimmune shit show for Amy. And it's because she's in that age bracket where there's a rapid drop in hormones for women. So, and I've talked about this, anywhere from 39 to like 55, somewhere around there. Women are starting to go through perimenopause, menopause, or recently postmenopausal. And that time is that quick drop in hormones wreaks havoc, not only in the lichen sclerosus, but we're talking about chronic fatigue, brain fog, even digestive and gut issues, right? So my question for you was, how big of a linchpin was learning and understanding your hormones for you?
Yes, absolutely. My gynecologist had recently put me on HRT back in April. And so my hormones are out of control, completely out
Well,
of control.
this is actually another interesting question, because a lot of people think just because my gynecologist or doctor put me on hormones, then my hormones are balanced. So what did you learn about your hormones while you were on hormones? Were your hormones balanced?
No, ma'am. No.
What were your hormones? How were they? What were the results like now that you've learned about it?
My progesterone was so high, it was not even measurable. My cortisol is so high, it's not even measurable.
Off
My
the chain.
testosterone is very low. And I have estrogen dominance.
So these people who think, I mean, this blows the theory out of the water. People are like, oh, you're postmenopausal, all your hormones are low. Bull crap, right? In a lot of ways. And the thing is, you can also have different patterns where certain hormones are high compared to others, like the estrogen dominance right there. And then you could also go into a doctor, and I don't even know, did your doctor actually measure your hormones before they gave you hormones?
Yes, she did.
Did they measure your hormones after they gave you hormones to make sure that they were safe, balanced, level?
No.
No, they did not. And that's where the problem is out there. Doctors know nothing about hormone balance. They may measure it if you're lucky and then say, oh, it's all low, which may or may not be true, by the way. They misread the data all the time. She was deemed, oh, it's low. I'm just going to give you some hormones. Don't even recheck if that's what you needed or not. As a result, several of her hormones went through the roof, which can trigger autoimmune disease also.
It could have been making the
Yes.
problem worse, Amy.
Yes.
To know that, and to know that your doctors should be trying to help you and perhaps are doing the best they can with their knowledge, but in fact, it might have been making your issues worse. That has to feel frustrating.
Oh, yes, very frustrating.
Listening to you talk about, your hormones diagnosis now after going through the program, I mean, to me, you sound almost like a medical professional. I had estrogen dominance. And I mean, these are terms that the average person might not really be familiar with if they didn't have this high level education. So I'm curious, what did you think about all of the learning that you were able to achieve through this program?
Yes, it's so much knowledge, which I already had a little bit of a medical background being a transcriptionist. So I knew the terminology and some of the things here and there. So I think that helps some. But yes, it's an overwhelming amount of knowledge for sure.
So you enjoyed that. I'm curious, what were some of your most favorite things about this program?
I just feel like it's a community of support, number one. Absolutely very important. And I've just enjoyed meeting everyone and getting to know people that have the same issues that I have and who have been struggling for so long, because when you're out in the community, you don't really see these people or know these people. And so that's another part of feeling like you're different from everyone. But getting to know everyone and hearing their stories that sound so similar to mine made a huge impact for sure.
Well, and yet expand a little bit more on that, because people who aren't familiar with this program, they don't know exactly what you mean by having this community. Talk about what it was like to go through and what does that mean, having that community?
Yes. So we have a pod that we meet with once a week, and it's about, I don't know, there were like 5 people in my pod. And yeah, it's just, they were very supportive of me. We do chat in the chat room, and we also meet on the Zoom call once a week. And we were all supportive of each other from the get-go.
And that meant a lot. Yeah.
I have a question about that, because I know we have in our program a pod, which is the people you start the program with. And then there's the bigger community of everybody in the program. So yeah,
Yes.
in the small pod meetings every single week, definitely it's a smaller community. I call it accountability. And I also find it, for people who don't know our program, it's where you guys process your mindset work.
Yes.
And, and interestingly, lifelong friendships are really formed in these pods, and these pods, most of them continue to meet even after the program. And so my other question for you is that people don't think that that's important. Outside of this program, probably before you even join the program, they think, why do I need to go through this with anybody else? Well, after you've gone through it, you're behind the scenes right now. Why should you go through this program with other people? Is that a downer or a plus?
It's definitely a plus. It's like a support group. It's like your own little network of people that are rooting for you because they've been through what you've been through. So it's very important.
Well, and the other people say too is, well, do they have your diagnosis? Is that what makes it helpful? Is that you got to find the people exactly with lichen sclerosus, IBS, and neuropathy? Maybe that person can help you?
No, you do not have to have the same diagnosis at all.
Why do you think it doesn't matter? Why is that?
It's just that people have, all kinds of different diagnoses, and they go through the pain and the suffering just like you did. So it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. It's been down the same road.
The causes are all the same. The root causes
Yes.
feeding all autoimmune diseases is the same, but they just show up slightly differently in each person, but the causes are the same. Just like you mentioned, food mapping. Food mapping helped your lichen sclerosus and neuropathy huge, but the same food mapping on somebody with MS might have helped their mobility issues or might have helped with their jaw pain, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter that those symptoms are different. The fact is that same process can help multiple different autoimmune diagnoses or symptoms, regardless of what that diagnosis is.
Right.
And Amy, as you went through, you had amazing results, but were you alone? Are you the only rock star in the group, or did you see everyone going along that similar trajectory of improvement?
Yes, I believe that everyone had different things that they had improved for sure.
I'm so curious too, working with Dr. Maggie, we talk to alumni and they have different interesting things to say. What was the experience like for you? What did you like about working with Dr. Maggie? I just need to know.
I like how she talked about how she's doing this for her mom, and that's very sincere. And so I know that she really wants to help everyone, and that means a lot. Absolutely. And I like how she makes sure that we know this information no matter what, so that we can use it in our future.
So you could tell she was very genuine in wanting to help you and all of the others.
Yes,
and she wanted
absolutely.
to make sure everyone was getting better.
Yes.
Amy, I'm so curious because I'm sure you tried many things before coming to this program. You stumble across this. I'm not sure how much you researched it before deciding to do it, but I know there was probably a moment where you thought, I'm not sure if I can do this. Why did you almost not join the program?
Yes. So the reason I almost didn't join was obviously the financial part of it. But what got me to ultimately join is the fact that I've spent over $50,000 over 20 years trying to figure out what's wrong with me and never getting any answers. And I was fed up, and I'm like, I'm done. So I'm going to spend this money. And it was the best decision I've ever made because this program is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Your health and well-being are priceless. And that's the most important thing.
You said best decision you've ever made.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you got your life back.
Yes.
It sounds like your life may not have even continued much longer if you did feel like your organs were shutting down.
Yes, absolutely.
It's an interesting concept where people are not used to investing in themselves in their own health care and their health outcomes. And I think it's really astute that you pointed out that you had spent over $50,000 over 20 years and didn't get outcome. And here's the thing is, if you spend $50,000 over the 20 years and it got you outcome like this, that would have been cheap. That would have been worth it. The problem is spending the money and not getting the outcome. That becomes very expensive. But I think more expensive than the $50,000 is 20 years of your life.
Yes.
That to me is like time is way more expensive than that money.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the money because now you're able to achieve things with your life. You're able to live your life. Tell us about that.
Yes. So when I was sick, which were many, many days, obviously, I lost so much of my life, not being able to do things and not being able to participate with my children. And that is so important. I've missed time spending with other family members as well. And it's frustrating, and it shouldn't happen.
Because you're retired now. You're retired now and you want to go live. You want to go do some things. What are you looking forward to doing now that you have this body that you feel good inside?
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to getting a job,
Oh,
possibly with a nonprofit organization.
so you want to give back,
Yes, I want to give back. I've been wanting to give back for a long time.
and now you can.
Yes.
You know, Anne's pointing out, a lot of people don't realize that when they feel better, they can actually go back to work. And actually, for her, it's to give back. Many other people can regain their financial independence back. Hey, Amy, what's a final thought you'd love to share with our audience?
I wish I had joined the program much sooner so that I didn't have to spend $50,000 over 20 plus years not getting any answers.
We hear that so much. It's like people say that all the time. I think that reminds me of, I don't know how many people have watched the training, but I've done a training called the Autoimmune Timeline. And in that training, I talk about how the sooner and earlier, quicker you intervene, the easier and bigger the outcomes and the less expensive getting that outcomes is, the less hard it is. Versus like if you wait 5, 10, 20 years later, the gap between being sick down here and being optimal up there gets bigger and bigger. That gap becomes bigger. So it's almost like there was a lot more of a harder road to climb, because I'm thinking Amy 20 years later versus Amy 20 years ago, it would have taken a lot less work, a lot less money, a lot less time to have gotten to be better back then versus now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you were able to achieve it. You made the decision. You found this. Did you hesitate for a while, or did you jump right in once you finally made the decision?
I jumped right in once I finally made the decision. Yes, absolutely.
So you got your life back. I'm
Yes.
just so happy for you, because I think about neuropathy, not fun. Lichen sclerosus sounds horrendous.
Yeah.
And IBS absolutely interrupts your life.
Yes, it does.
Is there anything else that you would like to add to this? If there was an Amy out there that you're speaking to that's been struggling with symptoms for 20 years, what would you say to her?
I would say go for it. Do this for yourself. Absolutely. Because if you continue to be sick, you're not going to be good to be able to help other people. So definitely go for it for yourself.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Boy, that was an amazing interview and case study. I love the fact that Amy was able to highlight that for over 20 years, while working in the medical field, she was having severe symptoms of neuropathy, causing her to have hands, feet, numbness, tingling, pain, and weakness, chronic fatigue, and brain fog. And how just over a very short time frame, we're talking in 2 weeks, with food mapping, she was able to completely really turn this around, not to mention the hormone balance and other pieces to boot. My thing is, if you know somebody who's suffering from any of these symptoms, or where Amy's case reminded you of them, I'd love for you to tag their name in the comment section below, because you know what? I want to raise awareness around autoimmunity, not just around the problems, but around the solutions here. So thanks for watching us. And if you want to learn more about us, make sure you click the link above or below this video to start a chat with our team, or join our Facebook group, Transform Autoimmune Disease Naturally. Thanks, everybody.